Welcome to the Law, Your Money, and You. I'm Roberta Sapphire, an attorney in Sharon, Massachusetts.
And I'm Camille Barron, a financial and health advisor, also in Sharon, Massachusetts. And once again, we have a return guest.
Long time.
It's been a while, but we are so happy to see him today.
Yes, we welcome Bill O'Donnell, the Register of Deeds for Norfolk County.
Well, Roberta, thanks very much for having me, and Camille, it's good to see you, and thank you very much, and thank Sharon Community Television for putting this on.
Yeah, and you are doing an excellent job. We have all this paperwork of everything that you do that was started by you.
And how many years have you been in
Well,
this role, Bill?
I've been Register of Deeds since 2002, and I recognize a lot of people probably don't know what the Registry
Why
of
don't you
Deeds
tell us?
is. Well,
Tell people
I
what it
always
is.
tell people it's an arm of government many people don't know much about, but when you think about it, the biggest asset most of us have are our homes,
You
and
bet.
that's what we deal with at the Registry, and there's registries all around the state. There's 21 registries, but we have 28 communities that make up Norfolk County, and our registry goes back to 1793, and since 1793, all land records that get recorded. And people might say, well, what does that have to do with me? Well, the deed to your house.
Wait.
Yeah.
What, isn't some of Boston recorded in Norfolk County?
Yes, and it's all part of the history that we're looking at, but a lot of Boston was part of Norfolk County. We're talking about Roxbury, South Boston, West Roxbury, Hyde Park in 1912 became part of Boston, but originally it was part of Norfolk County. So yes, sometimes when people are doing research on Suffolk County properties, they have to come to Norfolk because back in the 1800s, Boston was part of Norfolk County.
1793?
That's
Were
when
you there in that position then?
No. Although there's only been 11 registers of deeds in that time, but and an interesting thing is Governor John Hancock, one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, signed the legislation establishing Norfolk County in 1793. But since that time, all those land records, people's deeds to their house, when they borrow money, mortgages get recorded. When you're lucky enough to pay off your mortgage, make sure a mortgage discharge gets recorded. Or your communities, a lot of your community land records, when you have a Board of Appeal decision to put that porch up, or the Conservation Commission does an order of conditions, all those documents get recorded at the registry.
And if they don't record them, then it's not effective, those Board of Appeals decisions.
Well, and the towns want, we're in an era of transparency, so they want them recorded so people know about it. And in Massachusetts, we're a race notice, so if you don't get that deed recorded when you buy your house, you have some exposure. So
What do you mean? What happens?
well, it's race notice means it's whoever gets to the registry first, and that's why people do the rundowns right up to the minute, and then they record the deed to make sure no liens come on and things like that.
Oh, I never heard that expression.
Yeah. So
I've been around.
but
That's a nice one, a race notice. You can picture them racing.
but even though it goes back to 1793, we have records. If you and we still do it the old-fashioned way in Norfolk County. We're one of the few registries in Massachusetts that still print books. We still print the books, and some people like it the old-fashioned way. But we're most proud of kind of modernizing it, and there's been a lot of modernization that's taken place since the first time I was here. So a lot of all our information now is on the internet at www.norfolkdeeds.org, where you can go on our website for information for first-time homebuyers. We've partnered up since we've been here last with two nonprofit groups, Quincy Community Action Program and Neighbor Works of Southern Massachusetts.
What do they do?
Well, they help people with foreclosures. And they're nonprofit. So every community, there are people that struggle with foreclosure, and if a notice to foreclose gets recorded, and that's the only kind of thing we deal with at the registry, a notice to foreclose gets recorded because someone has filed a lawsuit to foreclose. Those groups are nonprofit groups, and they work with people. They help with financial literacy. They try to help the people get through a tough time, but they also have those tough conversations. If people have to transition out of the housing, they try to help them. So there's a lot of good information on our website, whether you're struggling with foreclosure or first-time home buyers.
Those are on there too, because we help with financial literacy.
Yes, and what I like about them, those two groups, it's nonprofit, and we also have links to the Attorney General's office because they also have some assistance and to help people that are kind of struggling.
Well, I noticed that a lot of town halls have links that you just click and you get right to the Registry of Deeds.
Yes, we've, slowly but surely partnered up, and that's sort of, as I said, it's an arm of government people might not know much about, but I'm always been kind of community-based, and there are 28 communities that make up Norfolk County, so we always have office hours, whether it's here in Sharon, there's 28 communities. The town halls and the city halls around the county have been great. We show up, and the beauty of the computerization that we've done, which all our records back to 1793 are on, people can come in and we can look up the information. So we save them a trip to Dedham, but we have a customer service department. We instituted that. So if you go to the registry at 649 High Street in Dedham, we're across from the Gold Dome Superior Court, you can walk into our customer service department and get the same help that we give people at the town hall office hours, or we do a lot of community outreach. We get invited by some of the American Legions and the VFWs and other community organizations. We go and we bring our computers and we try to help people out.
You have
That's
nice
fantastic.
staff. Yeah,
What?
you have
That
nice
is-
staff that works there too.
Yeah, no, they're very good because it's the biggest asset people have are our homes, and that's something that's important. And now you can look up a lot of the information. Not only is everything indexed back to 1793, like I said, if you went to Book 1, Page 1, the first document is viewable. You can view all these documents.
I never did that.
So enter Book 1, Page 1. It goes back to 1793. But one project we just finished up, and we were the first registry in Massachusetts to do it, and also in New England. We transcribed all our documents, at least in Norfolk County, between 1793 and 1900. All the documents were handwritten. So when they came to record, they brought the original deed, the scrivener wrote it out. Well, it's hard to read. And again, the mission of the registry is really to be a part of a big part of the economy, is the real estate economy. If you can't rely on these records, houses don't get sold in Sharon, development doesn't take place regionally. So you have to rely on the records. That's our principal
Who gets the
mission.
fees? Because I remember when a deed was $10 to record. What is it
Well,
now?
most of the fees go into the state. Yes,
Yeah,
the
they go
fees
to
are
the-
set by the state legislature,
don't know that it goes
it
there.
goes into the Department of Revenue and eventually into the general fund. And we also collect other fees. For instance, the Community Preservation Act assesses surcharges on each document. We collect that money. It goes into the Department of Revenue and then eventually gets allocated to the communities that adopted Community Preservation
What
Act.
does that do, Community Preservation?
Well, Community Preservation Act, it's a way, towns have to adopt it, so it's a form of a tax, but they can access revenues, they can access monies for historical buildings. So a lot of communities here in Norfolk County have used CPA to fix their town halls, for open space, and for housing. So so a lot of we collect fees based on the
Is that
state
just
legislation.
in Massachusetts that you know?
I only know about what Massachusetts does. But
Interesting.
back to the transcription project, what we've done, a lot of people now, you can read the document. So, that Book 1, Page 1 was handwritten, but now the title examiners, the lawyers, the engineers, they appreciate that when we hit the next button, that document is transcribed. There's only over 450,000 documents that we've transcribed. But now we're seeing that a lot of people like it for historical and genealogical research, because there's a lot of history in
Yeah,
Norfolk County.
sure.
And my philosophy was, well, you like to see history come alive, but you can't come alive if you can't read it. And we
Right.
have like 4 presidents were born here in Norfolk County. So
Really?
there's a lot of history.
Okay,
Yes.
Kennedy.
We'll save that for that. No, let's save it for, you gotta be kidding.
Oh, okay.
Who
I
the
had
presidents were
something.
born here.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Sure.
Oh, okay.
We'll
I know.
leave everybody in
I hope
In
suspense for now.
suspense. In suspense. They can Google it.
think who the fourth one was.
So again, the records. Our philosophy is try to bring the registry's records into people's homes and businesses. I mean, years ago it was you had to go to the registry, and we still welcome people, but people can now do the research online. We still have computer seminars. Check our registry website out, because we open up the registry. People come in at 4:30, and we give a little class for an hour. And by the
Fantastic.
end, they're kind of looking up their deeds
That
and their
is so
information.
wonderful. You have done such wonderful,
I wish the
wonderful
registry of
things.
motor vehicles would do the same thing.
Yeah, don't confuse us with the registry of motor
Yeah,
vehicles.
they are.
They're getting better.
They are
but,
getting
but,
better, right.
but we try to, yes, and the computers you can do so much, and I always try to tell people too, check your mortgages. I have 3 children. A
thought you were
couple
gonna
are out
say
of college, but when you had to
3
borrow money or
mortgages.
refinance, 3 mortgages. But when you pay off your mortgages, make sure the mortgage discharge gets recorded. Everyone says, "Oh, I paid it off," but the mortgage discharge is a 1 or 2 page document that tells the world that mortgage, which the bank recorded, has been paid off. And sometimes banks have merged or gone out of business, back in the 1990s.
Or they send it to the person instead of to the registry, and the people don't know it.
Yes, a lot of people don't realize they're supposed to take that document. In fact, at office hours, people will come in and they'll have a document that's 20 years old, but it's still an original. We'll take it back to the registry and record on them. And we do, again, on our website, have information for that. We have a document called Where Has My Bank Gone, which gives federal and state contact information as to help people kind of find out where their bank is
Wow.
gone, so they can
it.
chase
Yeah, a lot of
down
banks went
a
out.
discharge. Well, I believe in community banking. You got great community banks here locally.
Right.
They give good customer service.
Right.
If you need a discharge, you go in, you get that small community.
Sure.
They give good customer service. But some of these bigger banks, it's hard to find someone that can help
Well,
you
they
out.
assign the mortgage
And that's another issue.
to somebody out in some city and town and state that you never heard of before.
That's right. And the Registers of Deeds Association, part of that, has filed a bill the last 3 legislative sessions that hasn't passed, where we're trying to make it mandatory that when your mortgage gets assigned, that an assignment gets recorded. It's done on the land court side, which is 20% of Norfolk County's land is registered land or land court, but the other 80% it's not. And I just feel like it would make it easier for the consumer to, when they have to look back, to kind of track where did their mortgage go, especially when they need to get a discharge.
Do you know anything about, and I'm not looking to trap you or anything because it's not something that you might do, but these reverse mortgages, I've noticed that they're assigned from 5 different assignments, and then you talk to somebody and go, they don't know anything. Have you had any complaints about that?
Not on that, but regular mortgages, there's a lot of regular mortgages that have been assigned, and people are sending the check one way, and then when they need a discharge, they can't get a hold of whoever they need. But I always say with reverse mortgages, I recognize sometimes people are land rich but cash poor and have to do certain things, but the devil's in the detail. You have to be really careful to make sure it's right for you.
Tell me, what are some of the risks involved if someone doesn't pay attention to the deed? Let's just say they don't know enough about it. They don't know what they don't know. What are some of the things that could be pitfalls for people?
Well, the deed gets recorded, and it's always there. And if people, and I always tell people, if you don't have a copy of your deed, the professionals who are involved in the transaction will look it all up. One thing I will say, there's a lot of scams out there. One group charges $60 for a certified copy of your deed. When we go to these office hours, we certify it for free. So don't fall prey to these scams. There's another group, and that for $83, it looks like a real estate, they call it a real estate processing fee. And it's just, they'll send a copy of your deed. Well, come directly to us if we have office hours, or come by customer service. Don't be paying $83, for a scam. But back to the point about what the pitfalls to watch. I think one thing you want to watch for is protect your biggest asset. In Massachusetts, you can record a homestead, and a lot of people don't do it. I mean, the good news is the legislature has, for the first time in Massachusetts history, an automatic homestead of $125,000, but it gets a portion depending on how many people have interest in the property. But when I first started, it was $300,000 under the Homestead Act, and it's now $500,000. So the filing fee, again set by the state legislature, is relatively modest, $35. For $35, I'd rather get the extra protection. What does the homestead do? It prevents the forced sale of your home. Now, if you don't pay your taxes, your community can take your property by tax title, or if you don't pay the bank, even if you have a homestead on, they can foreclose. But there's other instances where it can protect you. Most of us drive. We might think we have a lot of insurance on our vehicle, and if we had a bad accident.
Aren't there different types of homesteads now? Like years ago, it was just the one person who could homestead. Don't they have different types now?
They made some changes. Basically, in Massachusetts, it's if you own it as your principal residence, And before, one person could do it and it benefited the spouse, but they changed that law so everyone that has an interest in that property has to sign on it, which again, we're in the era of transparency. They did expand it to trust, that depending on the situation, that if a property's in trust, you depending on who's living there and what the trustee says, that a homestead can be afforded. That law went into effect March 16th, 2011.
Oh, okay.
But and the other good thing, thank you local legislators, is no one ever reads the 30 pages of mortgages, but there was one line that killed your homestead. And they changed it so they said if that language is in there, it doesn't kill your homestead. So that also went into effect March 16,
But unless
2011.
the banks will have superior thing. In other words,
Well, the banks always did. I'll give you my example. When I refinanced, I said, look at this clause is killing my homestead. And if I don't pay you, it doesn't matter whether I have a homestead on, you can foreclose. But, banks have attorneys, you have to do a good rate, you do it. I just put another homestead on, and I think the legislature responded to a lot of people who were like, I didn't realize that this language potentially terminated my homestead. So the good news, if you refinanced today, even if that language was in there, the legislature said that language is null and void, that it does not terminate your homestead. So that's a good thing.
Are you seeing less foreclosures now or more?
It was declining. We started as a result of what was going on in 2008 and 2009. We started tracking the notices to foreclose because it was just a notice. There were so many notices. So we started a new category to respond. And as a register, I want the registry to be relevant. I said we have to start tracking this. And it's been going down since 08, 09, but recently we've seen kind of a spike up in not only foreclosure deeds, which is the end of the process. The foreclosure deeds is, when, the banks are recording, that there was a foreclosure. But the beginning of it, which I mentioned before, the notices to foreclose have spiked up recently. And again, there could be a number of reasons for it. Maybe some of these people were getting foreclosed on before, but got themselves kind of some extensions but now are back in trouble. But it's something to be aware of because it's up.
Can you tell if those are foreclosures are from reverse mortgages or it doesn't?
You'd have to look at each. We can't pull that statistically because whether it's a reverse mortgage or a regular mortgage, it's a mortgage.
Yeah.
That's how it's terminated. That's how it's termed, and you'd have to go through each one of them to see about.
Are there other circumstances you can think of where somebody would benefit by knowing more about what your services are?
Sure. We were the first registry, and you can go to our website to have a consumer notification anti-fraud program. The FBI says one of the fastest growing crimes, white-collar crimes, is property fraud and mortgage fraud. What you can do, you go to our website, you can sign up, and it's only for an email. It doesn't cost anything. I do it myself. So my name's William P. O'Donnell. Any William O'Donnell document that comes through that registry, I get an email. And I go online and look it up. Or if you're not handy with the computer, you can call our customer service department. And you might say, well, what good is that? Well, I've looked up these documents. Oh, it's William J. O'Donnell. Doesn't bother me. But there could be a time when all of a sudden I'm looking and wait, this is William P. O'Donnell. This is the deed to my house, but I didn't sign this. Or this is a mortgage on my property, but I didn't sign that. Now, we're not going to prevent the fraud.
That
I don't
could
want
be
the
an elderly scam, though.
Yeah, well, I don't.
Somebody who's taking care of an elderly person gets them to sign a deed and they don't know it.
But maybe someone can look at it. I'm just speaking to the fact that we're not going to prevent the fraud. But it gets on. You get on it right away, and we have links to the law enforcement agencies around to do that.
How do you sign up for that again?
You can go on to www.norfolkdeeds.org, and it's the Consumer Notification Service. And again, it's just getting an email. I know some people find emails inconvenient, but again, you're trying to protect the
If they
biggest
know about
asset
it
you
ahead
have.
of time,
Right,
and they
and
sign
I
up
haven't
for it.
seen fraud. Let's put it this way. I haven't seen that this fraud is taking place here in Norfolk County or even the communities around, but it's happening in other parts of the country. So it's only a matter of time because we just talked about the deed scams and things like that. So
Well,
people are always angling.
Sort of connecting all the dots. We've had other guests on our show who are maybe estate planning attorneys, and they tell stories sometimes about maybe a family member changing the will or changing the deed. Well, if a family member, like a sibling, right? If a sibling wanted to find out if they were a little suspicious for some reason, they could just go and look.
And we
right?
see stories there. We see stories where the house was turned over to the sister, the brother didn't know about it, and the brother's coming saying, "Hey, the sister's throwing out my mom."
Yeah. So
and the person doesn't know who to be more mad at, the sister or the mom that
Right.
didn't tell
Yeah.
tell
Yeah.
her
Does this
tell them what's
service
going
have
on.
to be in your name, or say you're looking for your brother, sister, cousin, or something? Can you get the information?
Well, we
on
limit it
their
to
property?
we try to a name, so I guess you could monitor your dad's property or things like that, but most people are doing it for their own self. But
That's fascinating.
so it's just another kind of service to provide to people.
Now, do other office services, other departments in other places offer similar services, or do you think that that Norfolk County is ahead of it?
It's like anything. I like to think we're ahead of it, but then we get creative. I mean, I've gone to other registries and seen things that I like some registries. We're all doing electronic recording now, so we try to look at. I always try to look at what's working and what's not. So yes, some other registries have adopted the consumer notification program, and I think more will, because I think it's a great service. We all do electronic recording, and as a matter of fact, just recently we got legislation through. The local legislators passed it on January 3rd, 2017. Governor Baker signed it into law January 11th, 2017. And it allowed us in April to be the first registry to record electronically on the land court side, registered land. We've been doing it for years on the recorded land side. And what electronic recording is, a lawyer here in Sharon, like yourself, Roberta, could do a closing, and then they check everything online and transmit the documents to be recorded. And it's been authorized by the state legislature and the federal authorities that you can do electronic recording.
So what do they do with the originals?
Well, now they can
Save
keep the
them.
originals. That's why we needed the legislation, because on the land
isn't
court
that
side,
wonderful?
land court was established in Norfolk County back in 1900. We have over 1.7 million documents, because by law we had to retain the originals, and that's why they had to change the law so they could, reflect the times. Like, wait a minute, we think this electronic recording, which has been taking place in the land that's 80% in Norfolk County, should be done on the other 20%.
That's
so.
a good. You've got to be kidding, which we're almost in. But another question: Do you as there's so many registry of deeds in the Commonwealth? Do you have meetings, quarterly meetings, to see, well, we're doing this, we're doing
Oh
that?
yes, we have a Registers of Deeds Association. There's 21 registry districts. Berkshire has 3 registers. Norfolk County just has 1. But they do it because it's geographically. So there's 21 registry districts, and we meet to go over things like indexing standards, to try to standardize and just go over ideas. And I was a past president of the association. There's, everyone gets, tries to,
See, I knew you
do
were
their thing.
important.
No.
Important.
And I'm currently the chair of the legislative committee, so we're always meeting to try to exchange ideas
wonderful.
and to see what needs to be done. So a lot of these changes we talked about, started at the legislative committee, whether it was electronic recording and things like that.
Fantastic. Well,
Yeah,
I
this
think
is
we're
a,
just
you've
about
got to
into-
be kidding.
I've got
This
to-
is what's
you've got to be-
happened to our bag. And here's all
We've
this
been doing it a
stuff.
long time, that's why, and we have so many things, so many topics in this.
Wow.
You've got to be kidding that the bag actually
Anybody
broke.
want a police badge?
Sometimes I drive fast. I could use that.
Oh, police badge?
I'm standing.
I don't know.
You get myself in trouble.
But anyway,
Well,
you've got to be kidding.
There's one question, I think.
Oh, yeah,
that-
you said
that
save her.
We talked about a little bit earlier, but you said there were 4
4 presidents born here in Norfolk County. They sometimes call Norfolk County the county of presidents. But it was John Quincy Adams,
Yes.
father and son. And as a matter of fact, back
Kennedy.
to our transcription, you can look up their deeds.
Yeah,
There's
Quincy,
deeds.
right in
There's deeds
Quincy.
from John Adams to John Quincy Adams.
Oh, and then there's Kennedy.
John Fitzgerald Kennedy, Brookline, which used to be attached to Norfolk County because all those communities
Yeah,
from
sure.
Boston were
Right.
were
Yeah.
attached.
And who's
And
the
it's
four?
in our lifetime, and everyone kind of forgets. But George Bush Sr. was born in Milton.
Was he?
So
Oh, yeah.
four presidents born in
I
Norfolk
didn't know
County.
that.
Oh, yeah, I think I read that.
Yeah.
Was it 020186 or 02187? That's the zip codes. A little trivia information. But speaking of police, you know, we do these police officers are our friends. It's an activity coloring book, and we do it. We don't even charge anything.
I was
This is-
looking
we
at it.
gotta-
It's great. And
we
you
got- we gotta
personalize
feel
it to the
Yeah, we
community,
personalize
which is
Yeah,
wonderful.
and our show now is we're in pretty well.
Well, it's
most
over
of
2 dozen,
Norfolk
right?
County. Yeah, over 2 dozen.
Including
in-
Boston?
Yeah,
Did
in
you think it was
Boston.
going to start that way back when?
No, the funny thing is we, I wanted to do a legal show, and I met Camille. She wanted to do a financial literacy show, and we just sat and we said, well, you know, it's easier with 2 than with 1, and it just works out
Yeah.
great. And then every now and then we got emails that people would like to just hear the 2 of us talk, so we do a segment called Behind the Scenes.
Yeah, you come
The
a
2
long
of
way,
us.
yeah, because I remember that show way back.
Well,
so.
you know,
Yeah.
when this book was first put together, didn't you say you got an email all the way from South Carolina or North Carolina?
Yeah, North Carolina, Greenbrook, is that Greensboro, North Carolina, where the police chief was saying if there was a lot of problems with police getting killed and everything, he says if they only realize that police officers are their friends,
So
and
that-
that's our friends.
Yeah.
And then our local police chief was looking for a book, and then before you know it, we, I mean, there's a whole long story with it, but we don't have it. Anyway, he had wanted to be a police officer since he was 6, so we really went to customize the book,
No,
and we
it's
put
great.
the drawing of
Yeah,
his
no,
thing on the
I
back
see
of
that,
the
and
book.
I see the badge of the community on it. I
So
think it's great.
each book ended up different, and then he said, "Oh, I can't have my police officer on a motorcycle that's not a Sharon motorcycle." And then this one, and then you know we have a dog in there, and a lot of communities say, "Can you change the name of the dog?"
Yeah.
This and
So that's
we
good.
and each book. We're doing our 2nd edition book for Sharon. We're still working on a lot of 1st editions. We've got one coming out for Braintree.
Excellent.
We did Holbrook, Norfolk.
The children
County.
love
Very
them.
good,
The
yeah.
children really get excited over them.
Yeah.
We participate in this Halloween trunk or treat, they call
Yeah.
it, where instead of having the kids go house to house, they come to the
You have to say goodbye.
Did
Did this go fast?
Very
Did this go
fast. I
fast?
enjoyed it. I
It- so
enjoyed it. And
Camille does the
thank you for
wrap-up.
having me.
Yes,
Oh my
Thanks for
God,
people
you
for-
were
Well, I never met
Wonderful.
anybody who could make us. If you just heard Registry of Deeds, you'd say, well, not terribly exciting, but I never saw anyone with such enthusiasm about it and
Wonderful.
so
Thank you.
knowledgeable.
I enjoy it, and yeah,
It's great,
You have
great.
a passion. For
Oh,
this.
as
Sure.
you wrap up, the other you got to be kidding is he plays hockey.
Well, you got to be kidding. Is actually I'm heading to go play hockey, and I don't know how I
Have to
became the
wrap
oldest
up.
person on the team. It used to be experience and treachery beat youth and talent, but now youth and talent's just killing me. So,
All right,
but-
Remember.
so we have to get going, and
Yeah,
he's
we
got to
have
go
to
to
end.
hockey. So please let us hear
Remember.
from you if you have questions about this or any other topic, because remember, this is your show, the law,
Yeah,
your money, and you.
you.